The next decade will prove a challenging time for the United States and its military. The last decade of war in two countries has set a course where hard and inevitable choices must be made. When wars are ramping up, the U.S. always takes the fight to its enemies. However, when wars are winding down, new fights emerge. Fights within the military apparatus, internal fights for existence. As deployments return home, aircraft are retired and active duty forces shrink. The top brass have to begin shifting assets and answering the age-old question, how do we do more with less while maintaining a high level of readiness? I was recently embedded with several U.S. Army National Guard aviation units in the desert of Central California. During my week with them, I was able to witness their approach to readiness while they pulled off one of the largest multi-agency air assault exercises ever attempted in the region.
This air assault was comprised of 10 different aviation companies. There were a combination of flight companies and also support companies. Approximately 200 personnel were involved in the exercise, and we had multiple airframes, 23 different helicopters in a reconnaissance type role.
Camp Roberts, California. In an obscure, ramshackle World War II era building, Lieutenant Colonel David Hall takes the floor in front of approximately 50 Guard helicopter pilots who will be the crews of Boeing AH-64D Apaches, Boeing CH-47 Chinooks, Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawks, and Airbus UH-72 Lakotas. Hall himself is not just a helicopter pilot, but also the battalion commander in charge of Operation Thunderbolt Tempest. He is leading an air assault mission brief that will take 2 90-minute sessions to complete.
The air assault planning began with an air mission brief and also an air crew rehearsal to make sure all of the crews understood exactly how the mission would execute and unfold.
The first part of the briefing has many presenters and covers such items as the goals of the exercise, weather, terrain, communications, routes, landing zones, FARPs, which are forward arming and refueling points, and contingencies for when things go wrong. The second part of the briefing, and perhaps the most fascinating, is the complete aircrew rehearsal of the event. This involves every command pilot from each helicopter stepping onto a mock battlefield recreated on the floor of the old building. Once standing on the mock battlefield, each pilot steps up, makes their respective radio calls, and then flies or walks the entire route, making not only position reports on the course, but also calling out specified altitudes and airspeeds. From beginning to end, the entire exercise is rehearsed until the script is memorized.
The primary objective of the air assault was essentially to provide an opportunity for this battalion to do a battalion minus air assault, where I would be able to validate that our company flight platoons are capable of doing their wartime mission. And that was the primary purpose for me.
The mission is clear. Complete an air assault that involves inserting 2 combat infantry units into an LZ deep in enemy territory. The round-robin route includes several checkpoints that include a troop pickup zone, a drop zone, and a FARP.
Once we began executing, it started with AH-64s conducting reconnaissance along the route to ensure that the routes to the landing zones were free from any enemy that might be in the way.
Not only are the Apaches looking for hotspots along the route in advance of the 60s and the 47s, they may also be destroying targets assigned by overhead communications aircraft. If any resistance is met, it's their job to engage the enemy ground forces and clear the way for the rest of the battalion. With IR cameras, Hellfire missiles, 2.75-inch rockets, and 30mm machine guns, the Apaches can neutralize most ground threats in very short order. While the Apaches are making sure the route and LZ are clear, the Blackhawks and Chinooks are at the pickup zone, hooked up, loaded, and then the word comes, time to launch.
UH-60s and CH-47s then began their air assault of 1st 184 Infantry from the pickup zone to the landing zone. A C-2 aircraft was overhead, providing airspace deconfliction and also directing the AH-64s onto targets that the infantry brigade commander wanted to ensure were destroyed.
Once the route and the LZ have been cleared, the rest of the battalion gets on the route and flies inbound toward the LZ. The Apaches remain overhead, orbiting the LZ to ensure its security. Once the first serial of 6 to 8 helicopters are on final approach to the LZ, the Apaches pop up to a higher altitude and provide cover and protection for the inbound serial.
We conducted multiple turns of the same trips into the pickup zone, to the landing zone.
In a span of about 7 minutes, 3 serials made up of 18 Blackhawks and 2 Chinooks hit the ground, dropping troops and slung vehicles into the LZ.
Eventually we needed to refuel, so all of our aircraft proceeded through the FARP.
The FARP is a predetermined location where aircraft can top off with fuel and be rearmed so that they may complete longer missions that require multiple turns along a route. The typical FARP has a capability of simultaneously servicing 2 to 6 aircraft in order to get them in and out as fast and efficiently as possible. Having been deployed to previous conflicts before, and knowing the likelihood of his units being deployed again, Lieutenant Colonel Hall knows the only way to ensure his teams are ready for combat is to put them to the test. This type of exercise allows him and other command officers to test and assess the actual readiness of these aviation assets should they be sent back into combat. Since National Guard units are not resourced as well as the regular Army, they have to work and train very hard to maintain the readiness that is required of them when the call for combat deployment comes.
I think exercises such as the air assault that we just did really fundamentally highlight what the National Guard is capable of. At the end of the day, it comes down to resourcing. National Guard is resourced at a fraction of the cost of the active Army. And if we are resourced with more equipment, more funding to produce more full-time soldiers, more opportunities to train, the capabilities can only grow.
With over 20 helicopters from the Utah 1st to the 211th and California's 1st to the 140th, and over 200 aviation and ground support personnel, this massive air assault drill goes off without a hiccup and is deemed a success. The mission was completed, readiness has been proven, no one got hurt, and everyone returned safely home.